We will now open the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting for October 11th, 2020.
August, Mr. Chair, August 11th.
What did I say, November?
No, you said October.
October.
October, yeah.
So it happens when I try to,
Call me
When
on
you're
I
having
walk
fun.
and chew gum at the same time.
October.
Oh boy. All right. It's been a long day. I'll read the tentative agenda. 7 o'clock, now 7:05, we'll have community input. 7:05, the LEPC update. 7:15, appointment of new employees. 7:30, review of the fall special town meeting warrant articles. 8 o'clock, discussion of the Highland building with the Municipal Facilities Committee. 8:30, continued Board of Selectmen fiscal 21 goals and liaison assignments. The 9 o'clock item that's on the agenda has been deferred. Those are zoning board of appeal. We may have other appointments, however. 9:15, town administrators report. 9:25, liaison reports. 9:35, approval of minutes, and tentatively 9:45, adjournment. So let me start. Is there any community input this evening? The only person of the public I see on the screen is I believe is the mosquito. Hearing no
Jerry Lerman is there.
Jerry, I don't see him.
Oh, he's here.
Oh, there he
He's
is.
waving.
Jerry?
Whoa, Jerry. Okay. Any input, Jerry?
Yeah.
Jerry,
You're
you're-
muted, Jerry. You're muted.
Yes, I am.
There he goes.
Hi, I'm waiting for the agenda item on the Highland building.
Okay, thank you. All right, hearing no community input, let's go to the LEPC update. Chief Fisher.
Yeah, good evening, all. So the LEPC had a few things of note. Most notably, I guess, the numbers came from the Board of Health. I think while Carlisle continues to do a tremendous job and hover right at 22 cases, I would highlight one thing that was brought to our attention by Linda Fantasia, and that is that of our last few cases in July and August, a good number of them, 5 specifically, are young people in the upper teen category. And she did highlight that and brought to our attention that, this is part of the state model, some of the things we're seeing nationally, that young people are getting infected, and that her concern and everyone's concern is that this could then be brought to other people who are more vulnerable. So just as a report out, we did take a couple of those things in mind from the LEPC when we were looking at other items like athletic events and athletic competitions in Carlisle. So a few other things that were brought to light by Board of Health is they're already starting to think about and plan for really big things that we normally do in the fall, like our flu clinic, when she facilitates vaccinating up to 100 people for flu. And then, so what does that look like in Carlisle now when, we're still trying to battle the pandemic, yet we need to also, so she's really been proactive in starting to get the conversations going around planning for some other important events. So that was brought up. Planning around a few community events was brought up, and we feel pretty good about those events, including a concert this Friday night at St. Irene's. I won't steal the fire from Joan because she's here, but Council on Aging got their exercise classes going. They have an excellent plan about, helping populations that use exercise and activities for seniors in Carlisle. They've done a fantastic job. I think the LEPC was very excited to learn about both that these programs are picking up, as well as the fact that they're being safely planned around. So I have hats off to Joan and her folks at COA. The Carlisle Neighborhood Response Team continues to do fantastic work. Food's going to be available in the school program through August. She's had several young people, Laurie's had several young people sign up to help out that are going to be working remotely as college students. I guess a good amount of the time was also spent hearing from Jim O'Shea, just kind of the 10,000 foot view and some of the things that they've been looking at. Their back to school task force has been looking at. Clearly, it's in the very near future, they're going to come out with their full plan for getting Carlisle back to school. But just listening to all the things that they've considered was very impressive. And their group really seems to have a good handle on the numbers, issues, tipping points. I think the LEPC as a group was very impressed and really felt for the position that group is in, that these are very difficult times, and planning for our youngest residents is critically important. But I think members of the LEPC, if I could, and half of them are here, I think we were really impressed with the lengths that they're going to consider keeping our young people safe. And I think I guess I'd throw also that activities are increasing at the library at a very appropriate pace. More access, more activities, really good stuff's happening around Carlisle in a very safe manner, I think it would be. But I guess also the LEPC as a group asked me to also remind everyone, as we always do, it's only because of the diligence of our residents that we've been able to keep our town has been able to keep so many people safe, that we're really doing it well, and that we need to keep on keeping on, unfortunately. I think probably some of you saw the front page story on the Washington Post today, where they're calling it now COVID exhaustion. Just everyone's so tired of this constant planning and thinking about it. And I thought it hit some of the highlights, and that we see around Carlisle. That while people may be a hair more grouchy than they normally are, just because of all this planning and being cooped up, but I think that's anybody else in the LEPC want to weigh in on anything I missed? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alan, we can't hear you.
Again. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that while they may not seem related at first glance, things like the sports programs in town and that sort of thing really are geared toward the idea that we want to have the school ready to open if it can, and that we want to keep the kids as close to home as we can so they don't get out there exposed, where contact tracing is a real problem. We want to keep their cohorts relatively small. And so they're making decisions which affect the sports teams, which really are geared toward making the potential opening of schools as an in-person option at least possible for the early part of September. And so that's just something to keep in mind. Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Fisher and the LEPC? As I say, 3 of us or 4 of us are
Yeah, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
So thank you, Chief. So I've spent a lot of time sort of monitoring school committee things, obviously. And as you all know, there's a fairly deep debate about whether to open school remotely or in person or some hybrid. And some of it revolves around the criteria under which we would move from one model to another. And something I've wondered about, but I haven't gotten satisfactory answers, is why can't we, or what would prevent us from having our own townwide testing other than expense? And in particular, I would be interested in testing of children and the families of children in school, because whatever model we go to, we have to monitor what the impact is. And it's more about what happens to them than what happens statewide or townwide. It's about those groups. So this may be something that, we would want to bring up in a joint meeting with Board of Health, but just for whoever's on, I'd be interested in, are there impediments? Why couldn't we just begin a townwide testing protocol? Again,
David, I did ask that at the walkthrough that we had of the school last week, and a member of the COVID task force subcommittee of the Board of Health was there, who rather unequivocally said it can't happen. The testing isn't available. We can't get it. The turnaround times are too long to make it effective. If you can't get relatively short turnarounds on the testing, it isn't worthwhile doing. So it's not necessarily that it was the answer from an individual, not from the Board of Health per se, but given that this person is half of the current COVID task force, I thought that was a interesting response. They seem to be dismissing it, and whether that's appropriate or not, I don't know. But that seems to be the current take. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know where to fit it in this agenda, so I'm putting it in here. But I think we as a committee ought to have a joint meeting with the Board of Health about all these things. And
well, as you know, they're meeting tonight, and I'm sure that will be part of their discussion.
right, but I mean,
we'll need to meet with them too. We've got to find sometime we're not meeting on the same night.
well, or we can meet on the same night and just, have a piece that's joint. But I think, one of the concerns I have in general on this debate about school opening is there's plenty of reasons not to do things. I'm looking for reasons to do things. And in particular with schools, pool testing we're a very good candidate for pool testing, in my opinion, because we naturally cohort into classrooms and we have a low transmission rate. So those are the two sort of hallmarks of pool testing, that you have a low transmission rate and you have a natural group so that you can pool those results. And then of course, if you have a positive in the pool, you then, bear down, but it greatly reduces the number of tests required. And I'm also very interested, and the window is now, in getting a baseline of what's going on today before we start going into school and sports activities. So we have a way of measuring the impact. And thirdly, I would say, there's a huge debate nationally, and the president's weighing in on this, that are kids asymptomatic, which they seem to be, and are they transmission vectors, which nobody really knows the answer. And so it's because nobody knows the answer, I think it's very important that we establish, some kind of framework where those kids now, if they're commingling in some kind of group, again, sports or school or whatever, the impact may not be felt in their own results, but could be felt in the results of their parents and extended family. So I think it's a select board issue that we should take on to drive this a little further. And the window's now, it's not in September, because we need to establish, what to do. So I'm kind of frustrated at the way it's going, and I guess I don't know where to take it, Mr. Lewis, but I would like to see us get with the Board of Health and kind of come up with some kind of standard, and let's price it out. And if it costs $100,000, let's decide if that's something we want to do or not. But we're kind of dithering around. Well, we can't do it. It's too expensive. It's too long. We don't really know all that. So I guess that's what I want to say.
Okay, well, we did ask it of the experts, and I told you the response we got, that we don't have to leave it there if you want to hold an emergency meeting.
One expert, but I think, there's lots of experts in town. I mean, I don't know what to do with it. And we're in an open meeting. We can't rehearse these things. So
Right.
I'm just putting it out there for comment, but and Mr. Chief Fisher, I'd be interested in his comment, but I think we ought to take a harder look. I guess that's my point.
David, have you has the school had conversation with Linda Fantasia and or the Board of Health around this specific question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm here by myself. I gotta let dogs in, feed dogs, all these things. Yes, they have met with the Board of Health. And I don't know the answer to that specific question, but they don't seem to be that interested kind of in the testing. And I find that odd because, you know, everything else they're talking about with regard to the criteria under which one would re-enter school and when, I mean, there's kind of several sets of things. There's how you start, you know, what model do you start with? And then whatever model you start with, under what criteria do you pull back and under what
Right.
criteria do you
Make a change.
accelerate? So
Yeah.
I give them credit that they're trying to establish a framework, but their framework is all about the statewide transmission and the Carlisle-wide transmission. But we only know that through testing. And again, that's a subset. I mean, if it spikes in the elderly who don't have kids at home, is that relevant to the kid situation? You know, so I just don't feel, again, I'm not on the school board. I can't drive the debate through the school board, but I am on the selectmen. So I'm trying to tee it up here and say, I believe we should have a meeting with the Board of Health, and happy to include the school administration, teachers, school board about, you know, these testing criteria and the NA method that would give us data. And even if it's a week for results, it's data, you know, and it's trend data. And we can't have it if we don't do it, right? It's the national debate about testing.
Would you like to propose a time and date for the meeting?
What's that?
Would you like to propose a time and date for the meeting?
Certainly, if I have your permission, I would, yes.
Sure.
I will do that. Thank you.
Okay.
All righty. Anything else for the LEPC? Hearing none, we'll move on to appointment of new employees. First, we'll take up the new police officer, Chief Fisher.
Thanks all. And I hope you would you'd consider the letter that I put forward. Just as a brief outline. Obviously, the Board of Selectmen enabled me to run a testing process for a vacant position due to retirement from July 1st. And we did post that for a month on Indeed. Received a little over 100 applications, either through Indeed, through email, or hand dropped off, and some of them both. From that group, a subset of folks reviewed those, and our interview panel this time included Tim Goddard, and Tim actually helped me vet the applicants, and so between Tim and I and Sergeant Mack of the police department, who was on the interview team, we came up with 15 people that we thought were the best 15 applicants out of the group. And I think I have this right, that it was 8 men and 7 women. In the end, up until like even the day before, one guy dropped out and a couple of women dropped out. We ended up testing a group of men and women. I think we had either 12 or 13 there that day, and did a written exam first, an IPMA exam for police officer. 4 people did not pass that exam, but everybody else moved on to the physical fitness portion. And out of that, the interview group interviewed 9 people. I was not on the interview group. That was Christine, Tim, and Sergeant Mack. And in brief, one person rose to the top. They did have 3 people they thought could probably do it and do well, but one was their, all 3 of them, their clear winner. It's a woman I'm familiar with, and I worked with her in Nashua. Her name is Carrie Baxter. She's currently the captain in charge of the Detective Bureau at Nashua Police Department. She's worked there a little over 20 years. She's She's done both the Massachusetts Police Academy, full-time academy, as well as the New Hampshire full-time academy. Has experience working in Massachusetts for the Townsend Police Department, as well as the Groton Auxiliary Police. She spent 2 years with Townsend as a police officer. That's who sponsored her to the full-time academy down there. She has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And that's kind of her in a nutshell. I wasn't involved in the interview process this time. But with 3 people saying that person's number one, I can also tell you that I've worked with Captain Baxter. She's an exceptional person and is a fantastic police officer. Clearly, she's been promoted through the ranks in Nashua pretty quickly to become a captain. And I would ask the selectmen to appoint Carrie Baxter as a police officer pending 3 things. So the completion of her background exam, her physical, and then receiving her certification from Massachusetts, renewing her certification, which I put in the packet that I need at least 1 member of the appointing authority. So that's any member of the Board of Selectmen, or you can all sign it if you'd like. If we send this to the Municipal Training Committee, they'll put it tomorrow morning. They'll put it on their agenda for 2 weeks from now. And that's how it's normally done, to re-up someone's certification. So
To complete, so it's pending completing, what was the first item again? Sorry.
background.
Oh, background
So-
check. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
So I've got to
That's
get,
us- For us, the
background.
back, yeah, okay.
Alan, would
Um,
you like someone to make a motion?
I was just gonna make it.
Oh,
Yes,
great.
please.
Go ahead, Kate, go.
Okay. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Terry Baxter, Nashua, New Hampshire, as a full-time police officer for the town of Carlisle Police Department, subject to 3 things. Completing, well, that we complete her background investigation. She completes the pre-employment physical examination, and that she renews her mass certification.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Are there any questions for the chief?
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to,
These people took their physical training, their physical fitness test up there on the hottest day of the year so far. You have any questions? She's gonna be able to pass the physical?
well,
Well,
that's a different kind of a physical.
Yeah, I understand.
it was quite a day to do the physical. Came out number 1.
Wow.
And we
Wow.
lost one of the guys who was a certified police officer, actually didn't even pass. All the women, all 4 of the women who were finalists, all passed easily, flying colors.
Fantastic.
Women rock. I mean, let's face it.
Good. All right. Any further questions? Discussion? Hearing none, I'll go for a vote.
Arnold, I.
Oscar Lilo, aye.
Alan, I think you're
Odell?
next.
No, it's.
Oh, it's me. I'm sorry. Lewis, I
Odell, I.
And Reed, I.
was looking at just David on the screen and I said, well, that comes before L. Congratulations,
Okay.
Chief. Sounds like a good one.
Thank you all.
Chief.
And,
Appreciate
and
Thank
I
you,
can,
Chief,
I can
for
come
your help.
in, I can come in tomorrow morning and sign the document that you need to get over to the police academy, the police training.
Can I meet you there at 8 in the morning? They would love to have it by 10 to get it on their agenda so that it has to be posted 2 weeks out.
I'm up at 5,
I'll meet you at 8. Thanks a mil.
8 o'clock. Got it.
Tim, thanks a lot for your help with this process.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief. All right, next, the new Council on Aging Outreach Social Worker, finally.
Yay.
Yeah.
Joan, go ahead.
Okay, so just so everyone's clear, this is the new position. that we got funding from the Concord Carlisle Community Chest, and then at town meeting, there was a special appropriation that was voted in. And then we have some funds that we're going to use from our state formula grant, which we get every year. So this is a 19.5-hour non-benefited position. We were looking for someone with a master's degree. It didn't necessarily have to be an MSW. We already have a licensed clinical social worker, Peter Cullinane. So we were looking for someone with advanced work in a related field to social work, focusing on the senior population. We advertised on Indeed, on the Mass Council on Aging website, on the Town of Carlisle website, and the Mass Municipal website. We got 18 applicants, and I came up with kind of a screening tool, a rating tool that I ran by the committee. The committee initially was Verna Gilbert from the COA board, Angela Smith, our outreach and program manager, Peter Cullinane, our current social worker, and myself. We were the first committee. So we came up with a screening tool. We rated everybody numerically, and only 3 people really met the requirements that we were looking for. We did get a number of applicants that did not have a bachelor's, had never worked with a senior, a lot of people that were in the childcare field, a lot of people that looked to us that, you know, from far out of state, that were just flooding resumes anywhere. So when it came down to it, there were 3 people we wanted to meet. So we scheduled Zoom interviews with the first 2, and we're willing to invite them back for an in-person interview. And then with Carol, who is the person that I'm recommending, we decided to have an in-person interview because she's in Chelmsford and it was easy for her to get here and she was comfortable. So we met with her in the Clark room, and we asked the same questions to all the candidates, and she was really very comfortable. We really thought her answers were thoughtful. They resonated with kind of our philosophy of, you know, letting the people you're working with kind of lead and not being too directive or controlling, but really listening to what people are saying and trying to help them get to where they want to go. So she was very, she'd been a physical therapy assistant in the past, and realized in that line of work that she really liked helping seniors and working with seniors. And, you know, people would come in for physical therapy and then she would talk to them about all these other things that were going on in their lives. And she just seemed like a really thoughtful, bright person. So we were going to invite everybody back for a second interview to meet the rest of the team. But then the other 2 people didn't really respond. So I think either they had other jobs or they weren't that interested. So they didn't follow up with us. So we scheduled a follow-up with Carol to meet the rest of the office staff. So our transportation coordinator and our 2 admin people. And they had their own questions for her. They came up with their own questions. And I really wanted everyone to feel comfortable because we're such a small team and we have such small space that it really is important that it's a good fit. So she did really well. Everybody seemed really comfortable with her. I checked her references. So she was most recently working in Chelmsford at the Council on Aging as a coordinator of their companion program, where she was training volunteers from the community to go into homes where seniors are basically at home and just kind of be a friend, a person that talks with them, a person that just gives them some social contact and something to look forward to. And that became a very successful program. So it ended up that the people going into the houses became paid staff, or, you know, a paid cohort of people. And it was a really nice model for Chelmsford. So I talked to her supervisor in Chelmsford, who said, you know, it's a great loss for Chelmsford, but it's going to be a great fit for Carol. We're so lucky to get her. She's the kind of person that would see a problem and then think of ways to kind of resolve it. Really collaborative, just a good person. You could always count on her. I mean, said great things, as did her physical therapy supervisor. So I'm very comfortable with her. Angela and the rest of the team are comfortable with her. You know, so we think that she's going to be a good fit and could basically hit the ground running and start working with kind of the most vulnerable, high-risk people in the community, which was the intention of the position.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Doing that, Kate, or you want,
No, you can do it. I had already taken.
I was leaving it to you. I hadn't pulled it up, but here, let me.
Oh, okay, I'll do it then. I
I've
just want to
got it.
make sure how you pronounce her last name.
I think it's Grunich.
Okay, because, all right, there you go. Did you get it?
Okay, yeah. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Carol Grunich of Chelmsford, Massachusetts, to the part-time Council on Aging social worker position for the town of Carlisle.
Second.
I have a motion and a second discussion.
Sounds like you got a good one.
Yeah,
Yep.
We need her. Let's get her to work. When did she start?
Monday.
Yay,
I guess,
okay.
I guess we better vote her in then,
We
huh?
better vote her in, yeah, come on, let's go.
All right, I'll entertain a roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Oscalillo, aye.
Louis, aye.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye.
Unanimous.
Congrat-
Thank you
Congratulations,
very
Joan.
much. We're very excited. I appreciate it.
Well,
when
thank
you
you, and
do
thanks for
find
doing a
out-
great job of recruiting.
Yeah, when you do find out how to pronounce her name, will you let us know?
I will. Yeah. What do you think?
Thank you.
How would you
Well-
pronounce it?
Well, I don't know, because she's a German speaker, so it
Yeah.
could be Grunich, you know, but it might be Americanized and be Grunich.
All
I
right.
don't
I
know.
will check on that.
Yeah, it's nice to get somebody that knows a few other languages too.
Yeah,
Yeah, she lived abroad for a while. I think she worked for an embassy. She's got a really interesting and diverse background, which I think, you know, the more lived experience you have, you know, the more you're going to have in common with other people. in some
but
way.
you know, well, you obviously know there's that French-speaking group.
Yeah.
too, that, you know, so maybe she can get connected to that.
Yes.
Okay.
All righty. Let me ask if people would entertain switching two items on the agenda here. I know Jerry's sitting here. I'm not sure he wants to sit through the rest of our meeting with us. If we could move the Highland building up to the 7:30 point and move the STM down. Anybody have a problem with that?
Jerry, was anybody else from MFC planning on coming to attend this meeting? You're muted.
Steve
There we go.
Hinton expressed some interest. I don't know if he was actually planning on attending.
Would you prefer
he
us
did ask.
to wait?
I
Did
think I
ask me.
would.
Okay, then let's discuss the special town meeting warrant articles. As you know, when we decided to hold our abbreviated annual town meeting, we were looking to keep it as short as possible, and met the 51-minute mark, which was a new record. However, in doing so, we deferred an awful lot of items to the fall, when we hoped we would have a much better idea of what the budget might look like, state funding, tax revenues, COVID extra expenses that we might have. I'm not sure we know a whole lot more than that now, but we really need to start planning for the fall. And I see Victor is on the screen as well. So
Is that Victor Leon? We're sure that's Victor
I
Leon?
assume so.
That's some other
I believe
Victor?
it is.
Victor, is
said
that?
he-
Yes,
Yes,
He would be here.
yes. There's that's that.
It
Okay.
is. It is I. Good. And I thought I had printed out in fact, I had printed out not printed out, but had on my screen today, the original warrant that we had before we abbreviated it. And unfortunately, my computer exploded today. And so I don't have access to that, and I wasn't able to retrieve it it's on a hard drive that I can't make go around. So if anybody has that,
I have it. You want me to share this?
could you share the screen? That would be great.
Okay, hang on. I gotta minimize
Yeah.
the Zoom thing so I can find it. Let's see, that was,
While you're doing that, let me ask
Okay.
Victor. Victor, do you, has the finance committee begun to address a schedule of how you might like to proceed? And you're muted.
BOS.
Victor, did you get my question? Again, you're muted. There you go. There you go. Now you're lighting up. We're not hearing you.
Hello?
Yep, there you go.
All right, sorry, had a bit of problem with the mute button. So, so we have not met formally to discuss the revision of the budget. We actually have a meeting this Thursday. However, one of the things I will note is, if you remember back in the springtime, one of the biggest things that was a swing factor was what was going to happen with the schools, and essentially what that would require from a standpoint of budget. And obviously, you know that the schools are still figuring that out and finalizing things. So the plan was that I think it was next week, Scott Triola would have a meeting with the schools to see where they're landing. We also, I think Tim was going to schedule some time with Concord, FinCom, the regional school district, or Lori, as well as their town manager to have a discussion. So I think from there, we'll probably have at least some sense of what some implications are, though they may still need to work some numbers out post that. So I think that's one of the biggest swing factors that we see. And I think outside of that is, going back and reconsidering some of the things that obviously we tabled in the springtime. So it will take a few weeks to be able to get through that. And I think that should shape actually a bit in terms of when we actually have the town meeting, because we certainly want to allow any other considerations to be made and discussions that we kind of tabled previously to be able to do that. So I think that's kind of where we're at right now. We will have a new chair, fingers crossed, in the next meeting. So not that I don't like doing it, but in 2 years, I think it's time to hand that over to the next individual. And I think I've identified them if they don't back out in terms of a chair for that. And that will happen at this meeting on Thursday. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We'll meet Thursday based upon what we hear today and begin to kind of lay out, essentially the timelines. But one of the key things is, I think within the next week, we'll have to try to touch base with the schools and try to begin to get a sense from them when they might be able to quantify a bit of what their needs are going to be due to the COVID. I think that's the piece that we're concerned about.
Okay. Wayne Davis has said he'd like to shoot for somewhere between mid-September and mid-October. Does that seem to be doable?
I think September is too aggressive. If you think about when we need to submit, so if you have a mid-September, Tim, you can correct me, we probably have to submit that warrant book within a couple of weeks from now in order to get to mid-September. So I think sometime in the mid-October would probably be work a little bit better, from the standpoint of having at least a few weeks. So if you do mid-October, that means sometime mid-September we'd have to finalize things, which gives us a couple of weeks to get essentially a recommendation, have a chance to review with obviously the Board of Selectmen, go back and take any feedback that we have, reincorporate it, and then do a finalization before we put it in the warrant book.
Okay, thank you.
And
Anyone have?
Sorry, Alan.
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, two quick questions. One is, I think it was at our meeting last week, maybe it was earlier, that we had the sense that the state was going to level fund us at least. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes. So from the standpoint of Carlisle, we did not. I think we thought there was a risk to our funding, but a very minimal risk at the time. I think the bigger question for us was the regional school district, because from the standpoint of Chapter 70, Chapter 70, at least in the last recession, was not touched. And even at the regional school district, was only like 2% impact, right? And by and large, I think there's some things within that without some type of federal assistance, they're not going to be able to really cut that significantly. The substantial piece was actually a couple of areas within the Concord budget, which they get for essentially transportation and circuit breaker. And actually those two contributions alone, it was a 2% decrease in Chapter 70 in the last recession, but those two contributions actually yielded an overall decrease in their budget of like 11%, or not their budget, but essentially the revenue. If it wasn't for some federal funding that they kind of were able to secure as a part in that regard, they would have essentially lost about 11%. I think they ended up losing about 4 or 5% after they got the federal grant money, or essentially the assistance money. So I think for us, I think in all of our discussions, I think we thought that Carlisle, there was a potential risk from a funding perspective, probably not huge because it's Chapter 70 is by and large what we receive. But I think the other piece, which was really the one that highlighted, is, you know, what is the fall involved, and what is that going to mean? Is that in some instances, if you've actually read the papers, not necessarily in Carlisle, but just in general, you know, some school districts are going to have essentially have to hire teachers to be able to run essentially both the in-class and as well as to cover off on the remote learning. So that's obviously going to increase budget. So that was more of a concern from a Carlisle Public Schools perspective. The funding piece of it was more of a regional school district question.
Yeah. And then one other thing, and Victor, or maybe you or Tim can respond on this one. Do we have any sense yet of how the town property tax revenue is coming in response to the first bills going out?
We do.
July
We
bill.
do it. And if Tim, do you have the exact numbers?
I do not, Victor.
Here, hold on. If you want to hold on 1 minute, I do have the numbers, but I have to look it up here. My memory is not so good nowadays.
Gee, join the club. I just wanted to say that unemployment in town is still hovering around 10%.
Yep.
Before the
Yep.
pandemic, it was 2%. Went up quite a bit higher, but went back down to around 10, and it's just not budging off of 10 for the past month or so.
Yep. So here, the way it reads here is right now, we have collected about 47, almost 48% of the $14 million that we would need for the first 2 quarters. And last August, so last year we had 48.8, so about a percentage less. So about a percentage less on $1 million is what, 140,000? So about 140,000 shy. So 1% over the 47 would be what, about 2 or 3% short of last year. Same, you know, same time period, right?
Yeah,
And then from a FY20 perspective, that's actually this year, FY21. The FY20 percentage, where we posted another amount last weekend, and we're still about 156,000 short than last August. So we're still trying to collect for FY20 and about 156,000 behind where we were last year at this time.
Okay.
You're saying, Victor, you're saying FY20 sort of delinquent collection. So you're saying there's 156,000 more delinquent collections than there were this time last year?
Yes. Yes,
That's a lot.
it is.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. There's a lot of unemployment.
Is there any way to correlate the 140 that are late with the 150 that are really late? I mean, in other words, the people who aren't paying haven't paid for 20 and are not paying for 21, or we don't really know that?
Kim may be able to run that because she can probably figure out who hasn't paid for 20,
Right.
and then are those the same people who haven't paid for 21?
Right.
But I can ask her that question. I didn't ask her that for the information.
And I don't recall, did we defer tax payments to the end of June or the end of July?
June.
June. Okay, so they should be in.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think Jim Dar was the one that pointed it out, and I agree with him completely that, I don't think this is, the worst that's yet to come. I mean, I
No.
think,
Correct.
it's
I
a
agree.
few, right? It is a
Correct.
few cycles in. So we have to be cognizant of that, right? And, I mean, we
Yes.
do want to kind of plan, I don't want to say business as usual moving ahead, but, I think we need to sharpen the pencils and be smart, but I also think we need to really start thinking now about a
Yeah.
contingency
Oh,
plan.
Yeah.
What exactly are we going to cut if,
Right.
that 150,000 turns into 300,000, right? You know,
No, it's
because we
already,
don't,
no, but Luke, it's already 300,000. What Victor's saying is it's
oh,
100.
it's 150 more.
No, it's
Yeah.
150 late, or 160 almost late of
Yeah.
20, and 140 behind on 21.
Okay, and it's 140, but yeah, so we're already at
We're
300.
already
right?
300 back.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I
So-
agree with you. Jim Dar is completely correct.
Yeah.
And those of you who've been
Yep.
around will remember that. And he reminded me of this, that, when I was chair back in the bad old days of 2009, 2010 was the worst year, not 2008.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So what I will
And
say
I-
there,
I-
just be careful with those numbers. So the 156 is an absolute number that I'm sure of. The other one
Yeah.
I was just estimating because essentially Kim said that, up to now we've collected 47.7% of X. And then
Mhm.
last year we considered 48.8. I just factored a 1%. I don't know if that's the actual shortfall. I think it should be based upon my math, but I'll just double check with her. But
But
either case,
we should check that, but we should,
Yes.
And
there's a number.
I want to clarify one thing also about the deferral, because we deferred the payment of the tax until June 30th, and we deferred assessing interest on any late payments until July 30th. So
So a
as
little
long as you
early.
made your payment by July 29th, you would get not,
is that right? I thought we had
Yeah.
deferred the payment until June 1st and the interest until June 29th or
oh,
June
is that
30th.
how we did it? Okay,
Yes, I believe that's the way we did it.
is that,
Yeah,
okay.
so there wasn't really
There was
any
I remember there
penalty,
was a-
right? Yeah,
That's right,
So we-
but it was a double deferral. They,
yeah,
That's right.
Yes, because otherwise it was going to be done May 1st. Yes, so you didn't have to pay it until June, but if you paid it by June
June 30th.
29th,
Yes,
or-
yeah,
yeah, you didn't get assessed a penalty.
that's right. So we
and
would
so
expect
at
the
even
July
with-
1st the payment.
Yeah, so even with that, $156,000 short, that's quite a few households. If you figure,
Yes.
at 10,000 a household, let's say,
And I want to be clear, that's a delta number, right, Victor? That's not an absolute number. That means.
So I can read it this way. It's like about $156,000 less than last August
Okay.
for
So,
FY20.
right. So I mean, if you want to just, we can go abroad, for a broad brush modeling perspective on a $30 million town budget, we're about 1% behind where we were, right? So
Yeah.
and 1%, for towns like us, we run right at a certain sweet spot, right? I mean, it's like the school
Yep.
budget, school budget. Wow, gee, they have 12 million, $11 million. What's another 100,000? Well, it's a lot, because you're right
It
at the
is.
margin on everything. So I think that your point is well taken, and or maybe it's Luke's point that we ought to start thinking about what does a 1% cut look like.
Yeah. And the scary part is, the vast majority of our budget is people.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
Um,
In terms of the project or other spend besides people, it's not a lot that you can kind of play with.
So, Victor, I want to make one comment and one question. So the question is, I learned this indirectly, but I believe that the Concord FinCom has asked the region to look at a cut of $350,000.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, A, do you know about that? And B, what's driving that? Is that similar to what we're talking about here?
Yes. So I haven't heard, from them on that. In terms of that was actually the meeting that Tim was going to coordinate so that we can get our kind of discussions around town meeting and other things on the table together.
Right.
Okay, I have a question. They asked for a 350,000 cut from their original budget or from last year's budget, or where's that 350 cut off of?
Yeah, that's a Victor question.
Yeah, I'll find out in the next few days. I mean, like I said,
Okay,
we're just starting this engine up, from the standpoint of tapping into it. Obviously, giving the schools. I mean, the FinCom can ask for it, but the region doesn't necessarily. Obviously, the region can take that as a.
Well, they're taking, I think that, from my understanding, and I haven't been sitting in on the Carlisle meetings. I just have exhausted my meeting appetite. So I'm not in the region,
Yeah.
but it's my understanding that they're taking that seriously. And
Okay.
I would say in partial answer to Kate's question, they're operating on a 1/12, right? They went to
That's right.
They never submitted a formal 2021 budget. and they're operating on a 1/12, which is a level funding, as we know. So
right.
I'm guessing that the 350 request is a cut.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um,
And what I can do is I can have Melissa, I think we can speculate as to these things. And I'm sure that your information is quite strong in that. But let's get more of the details from Melissa. I have her reach out to
Right.
the school.
So let me ask, that'll play out however it does, and we are the recipient. If it does result in a cut in a 25% of that, flowing to our town without us actually lifting a finger. But more to the point, the Carlisle school is now on is in a flat budget compared with last year. And to your, comment earlier, Victor, they're wrestling with alternatives. It's not clear to me that they would light on a model by next week. What they're going to do is on tomorrow's meeting, they're going to vote the 3 models that they submit to DESE, the Department of Education, which just says these are the 3 plans we're submitting. And then, then comes the really hard decision points about where they start. So in terms of, I think the thing that we ought to all, get an understanding of is in terms of incremental expense that they either don't have or they will incur. If they go remote, there are a bunch of things that they don't have to spend. We already know that from, the kind of dialogue we had this spring, Victor, about how much money the car will save, right?
That's right.
So that's one item. But then what's really not known, and I don't think the school's really focused on this, is I don't know that they have an answer for how much incremental funding for PPE and extra tutors and who knows what that they need. Now, I know that they're applying for there is certain Commonwealth and maybe even federal grant money available for that. So I guess that's a real question you should push back, go back to Scott. And to just make it extra special, we have a brand new business manager at the school, right? So she has the history that Susan Prey had. So anyway, just a couple points there.
Yeah, those are duly noted. I will also note that it is a little different than the spring, because in the spring it was all remote. And if you do a partially remote, partially in school, you can just imagine, for instance, if you're doing waves of buses going in and out during the day, then you're going to increase your cost for that. So the model is a little different than it was in the spring.
Well, that one I can actually shed light on. If they go remote, if they go hybrid, excuse me, you won't have waves of buses. You will have the regular bus route with different kids on the bus. So Monday, Thursday is one cohort, Tuesday, Friday is another cohort. It's my understanding and belief that they will not need to add buses because per the survey, very many parents will drive their children. And so the children who aren't driven will comport with the requirements of, 19 kids per bus or whatever.
Yeah, well, I'm not getting at I'm not getting at the bus. I'm just saying that, there's some, if you do some of the reading and not necessarily this particular school district, but, from the standpoint of the remote, some of them are hiring teachers to be able to do the remote and in
clearly,
person, right?
I agree. There's clearly more costs that are going to be on the horizon. And I agree with you. I just think they haven't really focused on, I don't think they focused on the cost element. They're really on the modeling element. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
All right.
I do.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Victor.
Yep, thank you.
All right, let's go down through these articles and just see where we stand.
Can you see them? Because I can't see what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see we can see through Article 2, which is just the flat budget.
Okay.
And of
So
course,
where do you want me to go? Because that's the budget.
Keep scrolling down. All right, stop. Back up a little bit.
Go back to 3.
Yeah.
One more. Oh,
Special
Good, thank you.
appropriations?
All right, certainly Article 2 will be on the agenda. We know that.
Yeah.
Article 3,
we've already done Article 3. We don't have to do it again.
Correct. Okay. So I'm just going to write down what we have to do. 2, okay, 3 is off. 4,
I
We
think
don't have to
Article,
do-
excuse
Oh,
me,
sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
yep,
I think at the town meeting we had in June, we did Article 3, but we funded 2 different line items. So these are the 2 that were deferred to the
oh,
fall.
okay.
Yeah.
So we do have to do 3,
Oh, okay. Oh, these
Or
are the
not,
two that,
but yeah.
okay.
or not,
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
not, as the case may
Yeah.
be. I mean, we could
but at least
decide not
it's
to-
something we have to consider in our deliberations.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead to 4.
Vote to supplement.
Bond premium.
Seems to me we kind of have to do that, don't we? You see,
Yep.
it's housekeeping, basically.
Right.
Yep.
If we need to do it, we need to do it.
Chapter
5, we'll have some long debate over.
Yeah. That will all have to be
Yep.
rejiggered.
I'm just looking at what we're going to have to spend a lot of time on.
Do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Shall I continue? Okay.
Yep.
6. Oh,
Yep.
this one, we can talk about tonight when we hear.
Well, part of it we
It's
can.
municipal. Yeah. Anyway, yes, this one will have to be on in some shape or form because
Right.
we're going to be facing issues.
Yeah, we're going to, well, at least, yeah, I'm looking at things we're going to have to allocate time for in our
Right.
meetings between now and town meeting. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Article 6, yes.
Yep.
Article 7,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, Luke, is the CPA working on anything?
Well, so I don't think we've reappointed CPA. So if we could actually appoint everybody or the new ones, that'd be great because then we can hold a meeting. It's always hard to get everybody together. And yeah, then we will put out a request for applications. I mean, it'll be a 1-month turnaround, but so be it, you know.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, 8, funding for Cranberry Bog. Do we know if that's coming back?
Yeah, so that I'm on that committee too. So yeah, this is actually it's not actually for maintenance. It's actually to do a notice of intent. So yeah, this wording needs to change a bit because at the end of the day, we need to figure out what to do with that. And you know, we're just kind of pumping money into it now for maintenance. So this is actually 5,000. It shouldn't get to that point. That was kind of a high estimate.
Yeah.
But
And
this-
Chelmsford has decided they don't need the water, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, long story short with that, there's Misty
really?
Meadows or something on the other side of Chelmsford. Yeah, that they're gonna tap into now. I guess they're the water district is purchasing or has an option to purchase a large parcel of land, 40 acres or something over on the other side of Chelmsford. So yeah, they're abandoning the well option at Barnes Terrace.
Yeah, very good news.
Good welcome news.
Yeah, it's very good news.
Yep.
Okay. Article 9, our new town clerk is elected for 3 years. Is that right?
Yeah,
She,
it's a 3-year. Right?
well, she was elected to a 1-year
1
term.
year.
Oh, the 1 year.
Right.
The last
Okay.
year of the previous clerk's term.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah,
it'll be coming up again.
yeah, okay. Well,
But when will she be voted in again? Is it September?
next year.
Next year, yeah. Spring
No,
town
next-
meeting,
It was last year for, no, okay, so it'll be next May to May,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
or June to June, whatever it was. Yeah, okay.
It would be nice if we could take care of this in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would reappoint her anyway, or, right? But,
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
if the
so-
town passed it, there could be, we would not be on the election next spring.
right,
Right. Yeah, so when this first went to town meeting and it was Charlene, you know, the idea was that if this did pass, you know, you would appoint the current town clerk and you would continue to appoint that person. So I would assume we'd do the same for Peggy if she
Yeah.
wanted it, but
yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's
actually,
what I was trying to get at.
Section 2 actually says that when the clerks, the
Yeah.
elected clerk's term expires, they then become the appointed town clerk.
Yeah. Okay, so it's written in there, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's important if we want to
Yep.
pass this.
Oh, yeah,
And
there
I
it is, yeah.
guess,
And I think that might be that could shorten the debate on it too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I do understand there's reasons not to want to have the town clerk serve at the pleasure of, another elected board. But on the other hand, I think the job has changed enough that, and which is in fact also demonstrated by the fact it's the only elected job that gets paid of salary, that I think we want to have maybe the town would want some more guidance and evaluation of a town employee.
Yep.
So, okay.
Okay, Article
9,
10.
10.
Yep.
Selectmen to select board.
11 is,
Hopefully that won't be,
Yep. 11 is the same.
controversial. 11.
is the same thing. It's
Yes, the same thing.
covering all the various bylaws.
Okay, 12, all this marijuana stuff, I think hopefully the planning board will be done and ready to come forward with by that time.
Yeah, well, we'll need to communicate with them to
Yeah,
find out where they are.
yeah. we
Yeah.
need to confirm that.
Yeah. So, and, okay, so the
Anybody have
personnel bylaw, that's something we need to be working on, and we started, but I think we need to kind of get on our horse and finish it up and do it, because that, we've been, trying to institute more uniform evaluation of employees and things like this, and I think all of that, this feeds into all of that by asserting, who's, what the chain of command is and who will be evaluating who and
Right.
getting that started. So I think that is an important task to finish.
Yep.
So
And
I
that kind of
wouldn't
came
like
out of our meeting last week. Yeah.
Right.
And yes, so I wouldn't like to see it slip until next
No.
spring if we didn't have to let it
So
get it finished.
this is a good, I think this is a good one though, where we need to figure out, okay, so what is the action that needs to be taken by the Board of Selectmen on that? Or is it, we take one or two of us that work with Tim or whomever on that? I mean, how do we move forward to actually figuring out what the amendment is?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we get 2 volunteers to go through them and make the proposed changes, knowing what our overall purpose is and our goals, then we can bring it to the full board and discuss it there and maybe put it to bed.
Right. It's actually, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but it has already been referred to our town council, who I believe was working on it.
That's
and we
correct.
just kind of got derailed with COVID. So it's just, I would say, though, if open meeting law allows, that it would be nice to have a couple of us kind of, say, well, we'll step up and make, try to drive this to completion, make sure that, things don't slip through the cracks and that we stand on the, town council, and that we do get something to bring forward to the rest of the committee to discuss and approve.
Yep. Yeah, we really need some firm stuff to work with.
Yeah.
So does anybody wish to volunteer?
Yeah, I'd be happy to work on this.
And I'd be happy to work on it as well.
Okay, there's 2. Good. And it's not a majority, so I think we're okay with open meeting.
And then Tim, would you be part of that?
I would be, and I'll kind of loop in town council who have been working on
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Great.
yeah, since,
And this is not something that has to involve the personnel board,
no.
which just reviews positions, et cetera. Okay.
Good, thank you.
And I just want to mention, since it's on there, number 17, which is the DPW septic system.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just want to say up front right now that I will recuse myself for this one because it's an arrangement because we abut the DPW and they're gonna use some of our land to get the pipes run to where they need to go back there. And anyway, this easement is between me and my husband and the town. So just so you'll know up front.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Although having said all that, it's really a gift from Barney and her husband to the town. So it's not like, she's
Right.
going to gain anything.
They
from
won't,
it.
they won't be able to drill for oil in that place.
Yeah.
Oh, who
Black
knows?
gold. Black gold.
Hey, we're gonna,
Yeah.
we're gonna have them build us a little swimming pool back there.
There you go. Be careful what you swim in.
Yeah,
Septic pool.
it depends on where it's spilling from, yeah.
Okay.
All
All
righty,
right. So that's it.
good. So it looks like we've got, the heavy lifting is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 and 11 are
14.
not, and 14.
11 and 14.
And so, yeah, somebody should check in, or I can do it if you want, with on the marijuana 12 and 13. I believe that Madeline Blake of the planning board is gonna wait on that, but somebody,
Oh, okay.
or maybe Tim, you want to confirm that.
I can check on that. And 15 as well was a planning board article. You might remember them submitting that previously, although the
Yes.
explanation was a little less than clear as
Yes,
to why they wanted it to be a scenic road. But
Yeah.
I'll check on that one too.
all right.
Not now.
So we have our work cut out for us.
Come on.
All right, any further discussion on town meeting articles?
Mark, could you call the dog?
I have one, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask Alan, so do we have a sense of the, let's see, if we're going to, so from the earlier conversation, it sounds like we want to try to shoot for agreeing on what these warrant articles are going to include. And then I'm assuming we also need to have had our discussion about which ones we're supporting or not supporting. And all of that needs to happen by the middle of September?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
So I'll try to work out a schedule of when we need to meet with the various boards and committees and get them on the agenda
yeah,
to make sure we meet those deadlines.
yeah.
And of course, some of them involve finance committee as well.
Right.
Yeah, so I presume there'd be a joint meeting with finance.
Always several, yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is about, you skipped over, Alan, you didn't indicate that Article 2, I think it is, was not a heavy lift, but.
Oh, I obviously meant it was.
Okay. So I mean, that's the bulk of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
is there more money? We are presently, I think, I can't remember exactly, but we're basically flat to 20.
Correct.
Yeah.
This proposes essentially flat to 20, but it's slightly different. Are the numbers on Article 2 informed by something, or is that just sort of a placeholder?
No, they were simply to maintain the status quo,
Okay.
but we had more data available.
Okay.
That's what was voted in June.
Thank you. Got it.
Okay, let's move on. Discussion of our favorite building, the Highland Building. Jerry,
Okay, well, it has recently come to the attention of the Facilities Committee that there are some safety concerns with the Highland Building. Right now, the building is used mostly for storage by the fire department and the Council on Aging. It's also used for training by the fire department. Our concerns about the building were significant enough that we asked the building inspector to examine it, and he determined that 2 of the stairways are not in usable condition. He suggested that the only stairway that would be used is the front entrance. So the question is, well, there are a couple issues. One is right now we're not sure exactly who has access to the building, and it's been noted several times that windows have been left open that might allow people to climb into the building, which would be a severe safety risk, because unless you step in the right places, you're in danger of falling through. So at the very least, we would like to control access to the building by changing all the locks on it so that we know who's going in and out, and we mitigate the safety concerns of unauthorized people gaining access to the building. There are more significant long-term issues about what do we want to do with the building. At some point, it really won't be safe unless we do something for people to be inside the building at all. There really isn't any other storage space in town that people can use for the stuff that the COA is storing and the fire department is storing. We have no other buildings that are available. So I don't think we can just throw people out without fair warning, but we need a long-term plan about what's going to happen with the building. There are carrying costs. We pay for electricity and gas to heat the building, and there are some insurance costs for the building. The fire alarm system is problematical. It fails periodically and parts aren't available. And if we really want to maintain a safe building, we ought to put some money into fixing the fire alarm system. So the question is, what's the long-term fate of the Highland building? Do we want to put money into it to keep it at least safe for the use of storage? Do we want to phase it out? What do we do?
Has the Municipal Facilities Committee discussed this to think about making a recommendation?
Well, our recommendation is at least immediately to change the locks on the building so we know who goes in and out, and the building is used safely by those people who are authorized to use it.
Okay.
The COA has stuff on the ground floor, and I believe some things on the upper floor. And the reason they're doing that is because of humidity issues on the ground floor. In order for them to continue using the ground floor, we would probably need to install a dehumidifier and then move all the stuff back down into the ground floor from the upper floor.
Is that something that household dehumidifiers can handle, or is it something you're talking about industrial
I think
size?
we're talking about a kind of industrial strength dehumidifier that would
Okay,
be
so
professionally
$8.
installed. So I guess mainly what we're looking for is some guidance.
Okay, well, I think certainly, I think somebody would make a motion that we authorize the MFC to change the locks on the building, or whoever's the appropriate people to do that as a first step. We can take that action right now.
I believe we already did that last meeting.
Well, we voted in favor of doing that. The question.
No, I'm saying the selectmen already at our last meeting voted to because I reported during the liaison, and let me see, I have the minutes here, and there was something in there, and there was a motion, and it was voted to tighten up control of the building, and I'll find it in a minute and let you know exactly what it said.
Well, so that's a short-term solution. We can mitigate some of the safety concerns by controlling who has access to the building. But unless we do something, the building is slowly decaying on the inside, and at some point will not be safe for use of any sort.
And is that a topic that the Municipal Facilities Committee is going to address, or are you saying you don't want to handle that, somebody else do it?
Well, it's not clear what it is that we would handle unless there's some goal for the long-term use of the building.
Well, a recommendation toward that.
I don't see that as part of our mandate.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what I was asking. Yeah.
We have had, when was the last study completed? And the conclusion was that there was no viable option that wasn't too expensive. And we also had the issue of it being school property. This is something that the master plan committee has been looking at too. And I think it's a really tough decision, because to actually, save the structure, which has historic significance, but also make the inside usable. I don't remember what the numbers were, but it's a very large sum of money. And I know there's some just thought about just tearing the structure down and figuring out what else we could do with that piece of property, which also would involve cost.
Well, somebody suggested giving the building to somebody if they would pick it up and move it away.
Yeah. So last week's, just to clarify, I'll just read last week's motion from the minutes. It was voted to accept the recommendation of the Municipal Facilities Committee to have the Board of Selectmen control the occupancy of the Highland building. So that's already been voted and decided, and we could do that right now.
And do we need to, I saw Clyde Kessel's letter, and is that something we decide as the Board of Selectmen to allow the continued storage of the COA things that need to be off of the lower level and on the first floor level? And then the description about entrances. Is that something we do, or is that something we can just have, I don't know, Tim could authorize, or, how do we respond to that particular request? Or Joan, I don't know, maybe you have a suggestion you want to offer.
I'm not sure I saw Clyde's letter, but
okay.
I went there with the director of buildings, and we talked about the whole dehumidifier thing. I mean, there's a few wheelchairs on that first floor that we would have to move downstairs. And he was saying we could go to, Home Depot and get a humidifier, and explaining how we would drain it. And I mean, he thought that was a doable thing. So we could move the things downstairs. But, obviously, I mean, we have a lot of medical equipment. Clyde knows more than I do exactly what the inventory is. Or I did go over there with Angela and take a look at it. And we are trying to, make sure everything in there is something we actually would use and we would loan out to a person. But, I'm not sure what Clyde's letter said.
Yeah. When we gave permission for the COA to store things, it was to be stored in the basement, and they were to be non-flammable things, because that building, if it were ever to go up, would go up like a tinderbox. So, and there were the shelves that were built, and so I would say that things should be kept in the basement for all kinds of reasons, and and if they can't be kept there because of humidity, then the dehumidifier has to be put in. But the humidity is not good for the building, period, because that's what's starting to destroy the structure of the buildings. It's not good for plaster. So I imagine the plaster key, I have not myself been through there, but I imagine the keys are all probably giving way and getting, things falling down.
So rekeying the locks is easy, and we can make that happen relatively quickly. But if the town wants to continue using the building, then it will require investing some money in it. And the question is, does the town want to invest money in that building?
The last time we addressed that, it was in town meeting. And that was,
And people said no.
people, well, they said outside, not
Basically.
inside, yes. Yeah.
Well, but the thing is, they have to be asked again because that doesn't work.
The situation has changed.
If we were to keep that building, we have to strip it down to the studs. We have to put an elevator in it, and we have to basically totally rebuild it. And there's no parking available, and it's on school grounds. So, you know, I part of the reasons I suggested the municipal facilities come to the selectmen for guidance is because we can't make that recommendation. It has to be kind of the will of the selectmen and or town meeting that if they want to, you know, we can't make any proposals really because we have no proposal for what.
Why, I mean, Kate, why can't we?
Well,
there
are a couple of things we could do. I mean, there is completely renovating the building and turning it into something that is an asset to the town as a useful structure. And another approach is putting money into the building to keep it safe for the current uses that we're putting it to right now. And that would be a much smaller number, but not an insignificant amount of money.
Right. So, I mean, that's two of, you know, umpty reasons. So one is, I mean, we just came off of a period where we talked about 1% decline in revenue to the town, 300K. And maybe that's 600K after the COVID, you know, winds through for a couple of years. At the margins is where the decisions are. And, you know, why isn't one decision, okay, you know, what's the, I mean, the debate we had when I was on FinCom, and Jerry, you might have been on then, about Highland, FinCom was opting for the cheapest possible solution, which was to take it down. That was the lowest cost solution. Nobody wanted to do that because, you know, you don't want to destroy a historic building, blah, blah, blah. So we go forward, you know, 10 or so years, and the situation is still the same, and the economic climate is now also the same, where we don't have a lot of extra cash. So I'm not sure that anybody other than selectmen could really finally decide, or maybe town meeting, I guess, you know, should it be just demolished, unfortunately, because that's the lowest cost. And the land is important land, and there's probably something that can be done with it, but that building isn't it. The other question I have for Barney is master planning going to assess this as part of their process?
No,
Which means also they're not considering it for a community center or some other purpose in their plan.
right.
So you kind of have an answer, right? The people who spent time studying what we need have determined in several times that Highland can't fit a modern need without just exorbitant cost that approaches the cost of a new building that would be much more useful. So, and then as Kate pointed out, you know, the constraints due to its location are really prohibitive. So, you know, it's not something for tonight, but I do think it is beyond the mission of the Municipal Facilities Committee to determine whether it goes or stays. But I do think it's for us to kind of, we may conclude that it's a town meeting article, but I think it's a debate that the selectmen should have, maybe with Historical Commission and who knows who, RecCom. But I mean, I think we're going to conclude at the end of that there's not a cost-effective use for that building. The only reason to keep it is aesthetics.
So we will proceed by securing the building, but there may be a time in the not so distant future when something happens to the building that will make it unsafe for the uses that we're currently putting it to, like storage. And what do we do then?
Well, I think that's David's saying, we really can't keep kicking this down the road.
Yep.
And
No,
that-
I think that's what the Municipal Facilities Committee is asking for the selectmen and slash town to let us know what your plans are for the building, and then we will make suggestions as how you can get there.
And I think the way to do this is we should appoint an ad hoc committee with representatives from appropriate constituencies in the town to address that and come back to us with a recommendation.
Sounds good, and I think it should have some time constraints on it, and it should be done
Absolutely.
ASAP.
Yep. Okay, and I will put together a proposal. I'll run it off Tim, and anyone if you have suggestions on who ought to be on such a committee, please let me know, and we'll bring it to the next meeting.
I think a member from school committee, a member from us, a member from MFC. Is that,
Yep, that
those
kind
are
of historical commission, perhaps.
historic?
Yeah.
Yes.
School.
Historic.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody from the master plan area.
And probably RecCom.
And RecCom, that would, yeah. Fire department, because they're currently using it, and COA,
Yep,
because
I agree
their
with that.
current use.
Yep.
All right, I'll put together a proposal for and put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
in the meantime, can the MFC actually get a couple of contractors in there for quotes just to what it would cost to actually demo and remove the building? Just so we have that number, yeah, because it's kind of a little hazardous waste site, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's got asbestos in it, do you?
Yeah, with asbestos and lead.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so then, because we're going to need numbers, right? Because the town's going to ask. And I
Yeah.
know when,
Okay.
John Ballantyne presented all the stuff and there were a couple of things. I mean, we were talking 2 to 3 million, right? And that was what, 5, 6, 7, 8 years
Because of
ago.
remediation, Luke?
What's that? No, that was when it was the complete renovation. Remember when they were talking about?
Oh, yeah. No, but
Plans.
that's
Right.
not the demo number, is it? The demo
No,
number?
no. So,
No.
kind of know the bookends, right?
Right. Right.
I mean, are we looking at, is it 100,000 demo? Is it 300,000? Because it's kind of the same thing with Reno Barn, right?
Yeah, it's within that.
I
Yeah.
know.
Got the
Yeah.
barn that we haven't taken down yet. And that's going to be significantly cheaper to take down. But
Maybe we can get group rates.
yeah, maybe. Maybe, right? And in the time of COVID, if people aren't working, that might
In
be
the time of COVID, yeah.
Yeah.
get a dumpster now though. But
Yeah.
but yeah, if is that something the municipal facilities committee could do? Just get a couple of quotes to see.
Yeah, sure.
Because if the
Yeah.
town does decide to go that way, again, we don't have the excess cash, right? But at least we kind of know what we'd be gearing up for, when the time comes. Because yeah, if it becomes too unsafe, right? I mean, and it'd be nice to secure it for the folks that are using it now. But I think we got to think a little longer term. Just what are we going to do?
Well, maybe we'll have a hurricane between now and then, and that'll solve our problem.
Bolt of lightning. Yeah.
Be careful what
Yeah.
you wish for.
How do you make a flood?
Yeah.
One of the high
Alrighty.
points in town, right?
Thank you, folks. All right, we will
Okay.
carry on. So, Jerry, all set?
I think so.
Thank you, sir. All right, go to our item on the fiscal 21 goals and liaison assignments. We need to get this done so we can make some progress on other things we need to do.
Yeah. So, can I just for some history, the original list was just kind of everything,
Are you talking about liaison assignments?
Yeah, the liaison assignments.
Okay.
So 2 years ago, the list was just a bunch of, just kind of everywhere. And so the list that you have now, that's broke it up in departments, boards, and, you know, committees and things. It was already my first attempt at giving some organization and priority or importance, some sort of indication of importance to some of these things. And when we had made the distribution last year of member assignments, I was trying to balance out what I thought were like the more important ones with the less important ones, so that nobody had too heavy a lift and, you know, was going to be having to go to meetings every night. So I just wanted to say that. And before last year, we used to have like 13 each. So I even dropped off a couple. Also, well, there's still a couple of doubles, I think, but before we had a lot more doubles, which has also made our list look bigger.
Yeah, so I think for a first run through, if we take departments and just go down and see who wants to do what. And obviously we try to align these with people's interests if at all possible, and clearly experience as well helps. But if we can go down, if we can fill in as many blanks as we can, then we can go back and do the ones that we can't fill in otherwise. Is that acceptable?
Alan, I wonder if we could talk a little bit about maybe some of the sort of categorizing and, you know, as I was looking at this, we have liaisons to specific individuals, town clerk, town accountant, finance director. And I would presume, shouldn't the, oh yeah, we do have the town clerk in here. Okay. Oh, and the town administrator, I'm assuming, or is that, Alan, you're essentially the liaison to the town administrator?
Yeah. Well, those were kind of taken care of by the meeting of the finance group, which met on the mornings of Board of Selectmen meetings. We usually met a couple times a month, in which we would have it was the finance director, the accountant, the assessors, the town clerk, the school business manager, and a member of the finance committee. And Tim and the Board of Selectmen, the members of the Board of Selectmen would meet. And that kind of took care of that big group. And that, they met on a regular basis.
Yeah, and that has not been happening, right? Not
since COVID, but it will go back again. Yeah.
But shouldn't we, I mean, it seems to me rather than having are you saying that instead of having a specific liaison from the Board of Selectmen to a particular individual that works at Town Hall, we wouldn't need that if we had that ongoing Tuesday morning group?
Yes.
So it seems to me we ought to, I mean, even if it's a Zoom meeting, wouldn't it make sense to go back to that?
Well, that's, if they want to do that, Tim, is that something reasonable to do? Do you have any intention of reinstating those meetings?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent idea. I think things are not back to normal, but things are more manageable these days. We certainly could you know, restart those FinTeam meetings. And that does encompass the treasurer and the accountant and
The
audit committee and a number of those financial, yeah, the assessor, right. So that kind of
and school.
combines a bunch. The school business manager, correct.
School business manager.
And so if we had that, that would eliminate some of those assignments under the departments category, right?
Right.
And then the other thing that, looking at this, is that there are a bunch of what I called kind of town hall committees or boards, like the personnel board, the technology working group, the insurance advisory committee, the audit committee, the senior tax advisory committee, the scholarship advisory committee. Do those all need an individual BOS liaison person, or is it possible to think about having maybe, I don't know, Tim, do you tell me what you think about, would it make more sense for those to fall under your purview, and maybe there's somebody from the Board of Selectmen that is available,
Right.
you know, to contact if issues come up. Again,
Yeah.
you know, I was serving on the audit committee and the senior tax advisory committee and the scholarship advisory committee, and I never heard a peep from anybody. So I didn't do
Right.
anything on those committees last year. And again, if they're all active, what's the way to,
Yeah.
you know, we want to connect, obviously we want to have good communication between all those groups and the Board of Selectmen, but I'm not sure it requires a specific liaison person.
I don't know that it
what
does.
it-
Some of them meet pretty infrequently, and maybe whoever, if the chair is my liaison, then those smaller committees could fall under the town administrator, and it could all kind of get covered in that fashion.
Yep.
Yeah, I think what we were talking about last week, though, was insofar as communication, those committees should have been notified that you're their liaison, and then they should be starting to send you minutes. And then if you read their minutes and you see that there's something that, ooh, maybe I should either be telling the rest of the selectmen, or I should maybe, you know, sit in on a meeting and see how they're doing with this, then, you know, that's what I was thinking of as one of the liaison functions. Now, they could do that through Tim, and Tim can let us know, but I think it's better to have it as, you know, us be the liaison. But then we need to let those committees know, you need to be, you know, here's your liaison, and send the minutes, send the agendas and the, you know, invitation to the meetings, so that your liaison knows what's going on.
Well, maybe, Tim, that's something where you could provide some information about if they have, which groups are active and have sort of regularly scheduled meetings, and which groups are kind of inactive. Like, I don't know if there are any of these that we really don't, you know, that aren't really functioning, or maybe have been absorbed into some other committee, but it seems to me we should take a look at that. Because Kate, I'm perfectly fine on if there's a group that's meeting regularly, and it makes sense to have a member of the board be receiving their meeting notices and minutes, that there's certain committees and boards that will fall under that category for what it means to be their liaison, you know, and then
Yeah.
some of the others that you described as more, you know, the requiring a lot more time, and it's
Yeah.
important to attend meetings. Maybe that's a different category.
Yeah, no,
of
I mean,
commit-
scholarship advisory, for instance, I don't expect anybody to sit in their meetings.
No.
But it would be nice to know that they are meeting when, you know, because we don't know. I mean, we don't even know if these guys are meeting, you know, are they doing?
I think in that case, they're down to one member.
Oh, well, okay.
So
and
they need some new blood.
yeah, so we need to that's open the lines of communication. That's what I think some of these committees need. That's all they need. They don't need to be.
Yeah, so I think before we make assignments on some of these, we you know, that we need to figure out who's meeting, who's not, what their status is. And
Well, we've got to make some assignments before we can go through 44 committees and get that kind of information from them. What we really need to do is, we know some of these are very important now.
yeah,
So
I'm
let's
happy
decide
to
who
do,
those are and make those appointments.
I'm happy to do
Okay.
the appointment ones, the important ones. I just think we should also do the other work as well, Alan, and not appoint somebody till
Well, I'm
we,
saying they may not need appointments at all, yeah.
yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we know the committees that we don't appoint. We have a liaison to the school committee or whatever. But don't we appoint pretty much most of the committees anyway? So if there are not enough people, like on the, whatever it was, scholarship committee, in itself, we need to know whether there's enough people on that committee, right?
Yes, yep.
And then the other comment is one that Luke made at the planning meeting last week. you know, a lot of it could be shortcut with a conversation with the chair. Like, when are you going to meet? What are you working on? What are your big issues? And what do you need the selectmen to help you with, right? I mean,
Yep.
you have a 20-minute
Yeah.
phone call and you learn a lot, right?
Right.
Or Zoom call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, let's go down the list, get the big ones done now, and then we can argue over the others
Okay.
as time, as time permits. Building inspection services. Do they really need a liaison? The building inspector?
I
Yeah,
don't
that might
think
be
so.
one of those that, I mean, he's in pretty frequent communication with Tim, right? So,
Yep.
if John ever had anything, John's pretty self-sufficient, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So he probably doesn't, right?
So let's not do that just now.
Okay.
The communication center.
Well, you're the one that was on that.
Does that include the new phone system, Alan?
No, that's the dispatcher,
Oh, at the
System.
police department.
right? Police and fire.
Oh, okay.
Could
You
we
want to go
maybe,
along with police and fire or? one?
We
Yeah,
can do that.
yeah.
If we had a liaison for both police and fire, then he could also do communications.
Luke, you up for that?
Luke?
You requested fire.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's probably not going to be a ton of work, I wouldn't think, right? Especially because the new communication system is in place, right? So there shouldn't be issues, right? So it'll be working with dispatchers and whatnot, but also the chief. Yeah,
We just did a contract.
Yeah, I think that should be fairly light. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay,
and that
so
could be split. So
communications.
I obviously won't do police, but whoever's going to do police, just assign it to both of us, and then one of us can take it if. We don't need two, but we can have one with a backup.
Okay. Council on Aging. I'm game to stay with that one. I've got a lot of history with them, and they do
Okay.
invite me to their meetings. They're active. They seem to appreciate the liaison.
Great.
Yep.
Public Works.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd actually like to do DPW if I could.
I was
Anybody
gonna,
want to fight them over it?
well, I was interested in doing that too, but let's see how it plays out. In
Okay.
terms of
Yeah.
how much you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a good working relationship with Gary, and I have a real interest in, how the transfer station can be revamped, and so.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Luke, are you giving that to Barney?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Well, yeah, why don't we see how it shakes out at the end in terms of numbers? And yeah, I don't care either way. That's fine.
All right. You've got fire.
Yep.
Finance director, we won't appoint because the Fin team should take care of that.
Who's on the Fin team for the Board of Selectmen?
Generally, it's been the board chair. Goes to the Fin team meetings, and the vice chair was also.
Actually, it's been me for the last 3 years.
Oh, it has. Okay, I thought
Yes, because the chairs weren't doing it at the
Oh.
time. So I started 3 years ago, but I'm happy to give it to the chair.
Well, I think it's good. I think it's good for the chair to do that, and I think it's also good for the vice chair, because if the vice chair becomes the chair the next year, it's a lot of good discussion goes on there that is useful.
Right, which is why I invited you last year to
I
start
understand.
doing
yeah.
it.
And I found it very useful.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the FinCom, not the finance.
The
group.
Fin team,
Fin-
this
Fin-
is the
This is the Tuesday morning group.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So that would be then Alan and Barney.
Okay.
And that'll take care of a number of these individuals.
Fire department is Luke. I'd like to take police.
And
If
I'd
nobody
be
else
happy
wants
to
it.
do the library again. I've enjoyed it. They really appreciate the liaison. So,
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
I did that 1 year. It's great.
And we don't need town clerk.
I'll do town clerk. Unless somebody else wants to do that.
All right.
Unless you want to put that with the,
That
I don't
usually
know, I
comes in
think
with
that,
with the Fin team. Yeah.
that goes with the FinCom. Yes,
Fin
Fin
team.
team.
Yeah.
Right, I
Yeah.
agree. Okay, so
All right. Agricultural Commission, near as I can tell, they haven't met.
Yeah.
Let's
They-
leave them off for now.
Well, they came with the right, the right to farm.
Right to
A couple
farm.
years ago, yep.
Yeah,
Well, that was
last year.
Last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
To me,
Yeah.
I mean, we can come back to this, but I'll just say
Yeah.
one more time. To me, this falls under the category of what we were describing, which is where if they do meet, they let the contact person know. I mean, I would call it more of a contact person from the BOS than a
Yeah.
liaison.
okay.
Or if they need, or let Tim know that they'd like some contact. They have a question that the Board of Selectmen needs to address.
Yeah.
Well, going back to what David said, once these assignments are made, we could call the chair of that particular committee or email them and say, just have a 20-minute phone call, find out what their plans are for the year, and to let them know that, if they need any help from selectmen,
Yep.
you're the person to call.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to keep it under those
Okay.
conditions. Yeah. Board of Appeals.
You have that one too. There again, I mean, we really don't have any sway or
No.
really real relationship with Board of Appeals.
No, it is kind of an important committee though, right?
Oh,
To
it
just
is.
kind of know
It
what's
is.
going on.
They just don't have a lot of interaction with the Board of Selectmen. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but this would be one that I think, we should have a liaison and we should make sure we get their minutes.
Well, all the minutes ought to be on the website anyway.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Everybody
That's a good
ought to
point.
be, I mean,
Yeah.
when you go to the website, you can't find anything. And it's
Yeah.
a pain in the neck. And all these committees that meet, as soon as their minutes are approved, they ought to be put up on the website.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But you're saying, Luke, you're suggesting we do need to have a liaison for
Yeah.
the zoning board of appeals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, or just maybe even somebody who regularly actually reviews those minutes and knows what's going
No,
on.
that's essentially a liaison, yeah.
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 So, yeah.
Anybody want it? All right, I'll
Uh,
keep it.
Okay. Let me see where I can do it if you,
Yeah, when we
overloaded,
do the
Alan.
final accounting, we can see who's
Yeah.
overloaded and who's not.
right.
Board of Assessors.
Yeah, I did absolutely nothing with them. They're kind of a self-sufficient group,
Yep.
that we really shouldn't have any influence over.
And
I
actually,
know,
they also come to the Fin team.
They're part of Fit Team. right?
Yeah. I mean,
Right,
Ken
so-
did reach out to me once over over a personnel thing, but
So,
they're,
so why don't we put Fin group on
Yeah.
that one? Oh, Board of Health. That's an important one.
I'm okay taking it.
Okay,
Okay.
and I'm happy to get rid of it. Public Schools.
I'm happy to take it.
Okay. CCHS.
Happy to take it.
Oh,
glutton for punishment. Yeah.
yeah,
That's it. I'm done.
Well, you've got the
Conscom.
experience, right? I mean, it's phenomenal. I
Yeah.
think.
Yep.
Yeah.
It
I'll
helps.
stay with
It-
Conscom. I can stay.
all right. Historical Commission. I can stay with that. I'm old,
You're historic.
historic. When they say, we didn't ever used to do it that way, I say, oh, yes, we did. Personnel Board.
I'll take Personnel Board because I'm going to be working on the bylaw with Barney.
Yep,
So
good.
it's me and Barney on the personnel.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Yep. Okay. Planning Board.
I would like to keep that because I'm working with the planning board on possible reorg of the land use
Yep.
departments. And actually Barney has been involved with that as well. So,
Master Plan Steering Committee.
Yeah, I can keep that unless somebody else is really dying to jump into it. I'm so deep into it that
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's,
was gonna say, I think.
a
you
lot
have
of
the
things going
history
on
and
there
the-
right now too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'd be good for you to keep that, yeah,
Yep.
with the
Yeah.
history and the continuity, yeah.
and besides, none of us wants it.
Well, that-
Hey, hey,
And by the way, we'll give you the Highland building. Retcom.
Yeah, I'll do Retcom. I used to be until Nathan took it from me. I'll go
Uh-huh.
back to Retcom.
You'll get him, huh?
Yeah,
Audit committee.
I mean, I did nothing, had no connection with anybody, but
That probably can be Fin team.
Yeah.
yeah, let's make that fin team, makes a big,
That's a question. Is that a good practice? I mean, the whole idea of the audit is that it's apart from it, right?
Yeah. that's a
But
good
but the
point.
committee
Yeah.
doesn't do the audit. Or, I mean,
No, but I mean, the BOS liaisons to FinTeam are part of FinTeam, right? So
yes.
the idea of audit committee is oversight on FinTeam. So, I mean, I would take it if you want an independent look. If you want to combine it, then combine it. But you should think about the nature of audit is to look at apart from the people who taste the sausage, not by the people who made the sausage, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good, yeah, that's a good point, David. You know, I think, yeah, I think, I'm sorry.
And what do they do? Do they pick the auditor
yeah.
They do.
essentially?
I think they
They
review,
don't do an
they might
audit.
do that, but I think, don't they review the audit results as well and make?
Well,
do,
we
they
do too. Yeah.
Yeah, they work with the auditor. They meet 3 or 4 times a year and they work with Clifton Larson Allen on the annual audit.
Okay. So, David, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
I got it.
Conservation Restriction Advisory Committee.
Yeah, I'll do that. I don't do anything with them. I actually hear everything through Sylvia.
Yep.
With Conscom, so that's an easy one. Yeah.
CPA Committee.
Yeah. It's
Luke,
kind of
when is
entrenched
your
in
membership? Yeah,
you
yeah,
pass
you have,
on, Luke?
What's
it's a
that?
3-year membership.
Yeah, so typically we do 3. Yeah, 3 years. Because you don't want everybody coming off at the same time, and they're staggered. So I think technically I'm on, but it would be whoever the BOS rep is through. I think it's 2021. So
Okay, why don't you keep it then another
Yeah.
year?
Complete Streets.
yeah, well that's combined now with traffic and pedestrian safety.
Right. Okay. So that's going to go away anyway, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's cross it off.
Deer Committee.
Oh, that's going
Ooh,
away
ooh.
That's probably going to go away.
for this year,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we have,
Yeah. I don't anticipate they'll be meeting a lot between now and town meeting.
Well, no, not this fall, but you know, they will have to work with some other group, or maybe the Board of Selectmen. I guess that's what we said, didn't we, when we we agreed to have it on a town meeting agenda in the spring, a warrant article that the Board of Selectmen would be appointing a group to prepare that article, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so this group won't need to do much of anything.
So we leave you there, Barney, for now.
Sure.
Energy Task Force.
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with this group because I'm also, interested in the household waste recycling and doing the DPW, unless somebody else is.
yeah, no, that makes, it's a
Makes
good
sense.
connection.
Yep. FinCom.
Well, I like FinCom, but if, if the chair feels that it's important for them to be the liaison, I think that also makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and we meet, and well, actually, I don't meet with the Fin team has a member of the FinCom on it, but not
Yes.
the chair necessarily.
That's correct. They have Jim Dar on it.
And Dar was on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Alan, you as the chair, you want a relationship with the chair of the FinCom.
All right,
Yep.
I'll do that. Yeah. Insurance Advisory Committee. I'm on that already.
You're a member. Is that an appointed member for a certain number of years?
It's actually we've got to start meeting right away.
Yeah.
because that's got a deadline.
Yes, it does.
So I'll stay
Who is
on.
it? Okay, who's the chair of that?
The,
Treasurer.
it's
Treasurer.
Treasurer.
I thought it was,
Yeah.
okay, I thought that was
Yeah.
a working group because it was a staff-led thing.
Yeah, Kim was doing it,
Kim
Ken was
right?
doing it, yeah. It's
Yeah.
mostly staff,
That's,
yeah.
So should that go down to working groups
That's
is
it.
the question.
No, I think it's actually a statutory committee.
Yeah,
It's a statutory.
it is.
Yeah, and the treasurer
Okay.
has to be the chair.
It just hadn't met
All
in
right.
quite a long time.
All right,
Right.
got to get moving.
Land stewardship,
Yeah, it kind of falls under conscom.
conscom again, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't really meet that much either. So
Yeah.
I don't like them. Yeah.
Long-term caps,
Well, it says I'm a member, although I thought Nathan was a member. I don't know. That got screwed up last year. I was a member once before. I'm on the MFC, which is also related. So I guess I'd like to go back on the long-term caps
okay.
because
You're
I
gonna
think it
do
makes
both?
sense.
Both of them? Or
Well,
somebody else is gonna do MFC?
oh, I'm on MSC until 2021, I think.
Yeah, I think MFC, the whole committee's appointed until 2021, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so I think, I think maybe next year is the year we kind of reevaluate.
Right.
Kind of keep everything, because there are a couple of people who don't come to the meetings anymore, right? So I think,
Yeah.
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 So I mean, unless it becomes an issue, I think we need to start thinking now about, not necessarily rewriting the charter completely, but kind of restructuring that a bit.
Well, there have been talks, Tim, you've been continuing to talk with school about
Yeah.
consolidating
Right.
certain things, and I think that was one of the things. So we've been kind of I think we need to wait until that conversation happens so that we
Yeah.
know.
Right.
That would be helpful.
Okay, we'll leave
So,
it for the
anyway.
time being, Kate, yeah.
Leave me there for the
Yep.
time being. Yeah.
TPSC, Luke,
Yeah, I'll stay on that at least until.
till the shooting starts.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of already started. Yeah.
Yeah, it has.
I think we should just leave the center like it is. Nobody will go over that rumble.
Slow down.
Yeah, just, leave the rebar exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't name any names, but at the LEPC conversation on Monday, one of the lead-off comments was, well, at least nobody fell into that big hole in the center of town.
That's right.
Yeah, a lot of cones and barrels in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
many of which have moved.
Yeah, people definitely clipping stuff.
Yeah.
Scholarship Advisory Committee.
Well, we could drop that off the list, obviously. We
I
have
think so.
really, again, no sway and there's no,
There's
no money involved,
yeah,
really.
It's not a policy committee per se.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the
Veterans
Veterans
Committee.
Committee ditto, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we have a veterans rep. It's really not, unless
Right.
there's, if an issue comes up, like he can talk to Tim, and I mean, that's really we're buying those services from another town right now.
Right.
Mhm.
Does that make sense to you, Tim?
Sure. No, I
Yeah.
think it does.
Okay.
Okay, then we got Fin Team, so that'll be me. And if Barney, you want to
Yeah.
come, well, you're welcome to do that.
Yep, I definitely like to be,
Yeah.
yeah, you learn a lot at those meetings, trust me.
I
yeah.
think the telecommunications working group
That's-
is done, isn't it?
It's, yeah, all but over. Yeah.
So we can cross that off.
The technology working group, however, is not done.
Yes. No, and it needs to get revved up.
Yep. And I'm happy to do that.
Okay?
And the Senior Tax Advisory Committee.
Yeah,
That work.
again, I didn't do anything. Do they meet, Tim?
They do. They do. That might fall either under whoever has COA or whoever has the assessors.
That was Alan.
Yeah. I'm always willing to take a committee that doesn't do anything. I'll take it.
Even if it's a, one of those conversations with the chair, who's the chair, Tim? Do they have one?
I don't know who it is at the moment.
Yeah, that's okay.
It might be the treasurer again.
All righty, well, I will redo this list, send it to Tim, and he can send it out to everybody, that we can then count up who has what. And if you want to make any changes, let us know.
I have very little, but that's okay with me.
Yeah. But you have some, you have some that meet a lot, though.
Yeah,
MFC.
MFC
Yeah.
is a biggie, I have to tell you.
Yep. All right, good. Thank you.
Good.
Town administrators report.
Excuse me, Alan,
Yep.
is there anything more we want to do around the goals?
Yeah, and I was going to write those up and give a summary. Mark did send me his summary of it, and I just didn't get to that this week due to a lot of other things. And I actually started it before my computer blew up today, but didn't get it out. So I will have that for the next meeting.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, great.
And by the way, things have already started to happen, which is very, very nice.
How do you mean?
I mean, we're getting early submittal of things for the agenda. We're getting minutes. We're getting all kinds of neat stuff. So that was a useful meeting. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You skipped over appointments, resignations before we get to town administrator.
Yeah, what do we got there?
Was that the ZBA one?
No, ZBA has been pulled for the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they've got other candidates, I guess, that they wanted to interview.
Wanted to interview, yeah. Okay, town administrators report.
Okay, thank you. The first item in my report, I think Barney, actually, this is an item that she had, she's got a proclamation, I think.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
You could,
great. And it's not very long, so if you don't mind, I'd like to read it just so it's on the record here. Whereas the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified 100 years ago on August 18th, 1920. Whereas the 19th Amendment guarantees that in our democracy, no one should be denied the right to vote based on gender. Whereas courageous women suffered and fought hard for many years to secure the passage of the 19th Amendment. Whereas today there are many eligible voters, particularly people of color and low-income people, who are denied their right to vote freely and without restrictions. Whereas Suffrage 100 Carlisle, Suffrage 100 Massachusetts, the Carlisle Historical Society, and the Concord Carlisle League of Women Voters are sponsoring a celebration of the 100th anniversary of a woman's right to vote in Carlisle, exactly 100 years since the passage of the 19th Amendment. Whereas this celebration is a way for women and men, girls and boys in Carlisle to honor the sacrifices and determination of those who fought for women's suffrage. Whereas this celebration is a time to recognize our own civic responsibility to exercise our right to vote. Whereas the celebration is also a time to share our belief that no one should be denied their right to vote and that everyone should have the freedom to vote and participate in our democracy. Now, therefore, we, the Carlisle Board of Selectmen, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 18th, 2020, the 100th anniversary celebration of a woman's right to vote.
That's slightly different wording than the one I had in my packet, but sounds good. Great. So I move that Board of Selectmen adopt the Town of Carlisle proclamation for the 100th anniversary day of a woman's right to vote.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Further discussion? Anybody opposed? My wife told me no.
Wait, she told you? Your
Pardon me?
wife told you? What did
She
what
told
did
me
your wife?
do not oppose it.
Oh, I see. That sounds more like it. Yeah.
All right, roll call vote.
Arnold, a resounding aye.
Oscar Lillo, aye.
Lewis, aye.
Odell, aye.
Reed, aye.
Passes unanimously.
And I hope you'll all consider coming next Tuesday, week from tonight, from 5 to 6:30 up at the town Rotary, and you will be met by several people in period costumes from the 1920s, and lots of signs and banners, and a really great event. Thank you.
You wearing your flapper outfit?
I'm actually going to talk to Kathy Booth tomorrow to get my own flapper outfit and big hat.
There you go. All righty. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, the second item is a request from the Conservation Commission for use of about $4,400 from the Wetlands Intense account to fund 3 hours per week of the administrative assistant for the Conservation Commission. You'll recall that this request is made annually, and it funds a small portion of that administrative assistant position. We have a suggested motion for you as well.
Someone want to make the motion?
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the use of $4,424.16 from the Wetlands Protection Aid Intense account for the purpose of funding wages for 3 hours per week for the Conservation Commission Administrative Assistant.
Do I hear a second? Okay. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Arnold, aye.
Oscar, aye.
Louis, aye.
Modell, aye.
Reed, aye.
Thank you. Unanimous. Motion passes. Tim.
Okay, thank you. Also attached to my report, you'll see a report from Clean Harbors regarding the July contamination of the town's waste oil collection receptacle at the transfer station and the cost to dispose of that contaminated oil. The cost was somewhat less than expected. However, it was still $89,000, which is a lot of money. Gary intends to take this from the hazardous waste fund. This, hampers his ability to be flexible with that funding this year. I think he was potentially looking at a vehicle out of that fund, but we've got to deal with the contamination. Now, Gary has shut down the collection of waste oil at the transfer station and is looking to the board for guidance on that. His recommendation is that we steer residents to regional hazardous waste collection events or encourage them to return used motor oil to the point of purchase. It's obviously, it was a very costly lesson to learn, and it's unfortunate that somebody knowingly or unknowingly, put something in there that caused this problem. And also unfortunate that by the time the tests come back, it's several larger receptacles downstream, and you've contaminated 20,000 gallons of oil rather than 500.
How do we know it was ours?
They have kind of the chain of custody of it, and town council looked at it as well. They sample it at every point that they collect it, and so they know, which samples popped up as testing positive, so to speak. So they know, they can determine which pickup had the hot load, as they say.
But they only want to do the test on the aggregate so only if the aggregate tests positive, do they then go back to the individual samples?
I think that's the case. If it in the aggregate it looks fine, there's no need to go back. But they can determine who contributed the contaminated material. And unfortunately, this time it was us.
Do we know how much a test costs in general?
I don't know that. I can find that out, but
I mean, because we could collect it if we test it before we send it, then we know that we're not sending something contaminated. But
Well,
on the other hand,
how long have we been doing this, and have we ever had something like this happen before?
not to my knowledge. I don't know. Others been around longer than I have, but I don't recall anything like this.
Yeah,
happening.
no, this is, yeah, no, this is new.
Yeah, it's hard
But,
to know
you know,
where
it's-
it even came from.
Yeah, it's kind of the risk you run though. Somebody cleans something out and, they think it's waste oil. And my guess is it was completely unintentional.
Yeah.
But, it's a huge pill to swallow.
Huge expense.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And technically when you buy oil, right, you're supposed to be able to take it back, the waste oil back to the store you purchased it from in the original containers with the receipt. So, there are other means to do it. Because I thought what was happening with this was Gary was burning it in, his waste oil heaters. But if we're paying to get rid of it, then
Well, they pay us to get rid of it.
oh, they do.
You should. They sell it.
The
That
waste
waste oil is used by the trucking industry
Yeah.
incredibly.
No, so yeah, I mean, if it is a revenue stream, then maybe
Should be. Yeah.
then maybe we
Well-
look into the testing, and that's a
Yeah,
little
I-
involved though. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it really frosts me that they have samples, they collect samples, and then they don't test them, and they only test
Yeah.
them if there's that, and then so that no matter who it would have been, so it was us this time, but it's not just a little problem; it becomes a huge problem. So,
Yeah.
so
Well, again, the testing may be expensive, which is why they do it. They only test it if the
Yeah.
aggregate
Yeah.
tests positive.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I was asking how much does it cost, because
Find
to
out.
see if maybe we should be, because for $89,000 buys you a lot of tests.
Yeah. Well, who's the DPW liaison?
Yeah.
Not me.
Barney.
Really?
You know what maybe we should do, Barney, is I can be the DPW rep and you can be the recycling and what was the other one? There were two, right? We can kind of
Cold Waste Energy Task Force.
Yeah.
tag team the DPW,
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah.
Well, it wasn't Gary's
I
fault,
mean,
you know,
it's
but
like
No,
a lot of
exactly.
recycling. When you make it more difficult for people to recycle, they tend not to. They go dump their
Right.
oil somewhere where it's convenient.
that's what
Yeah,
worries me.
that's the
They're
thing.
not going to take it back to the point of purchase. I mean, I can tell you, when my husband used to do our own lubes, he wasn't collecting that oil in any cans, that new cans with receipts,
Right.
He was,
There's a stump in the yard that is highly flammable.
well, we weren't, anyway, it was in the
Yeah.
day when you could still do that, still.
Well, let's try. Actually, it is worthwhile finding out what it costs, because if it's a minimal amount, we could resume collections here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're reporting, we obviously are gonna have to pay this bill. We've looked into,
Right.
the liability and why,
Yeah.
they didn't catch this sooner, why they would let all this oil get commingled before they tested it, but,
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably be a bit of a change in practice, right? Because you send a sample out, you'll have to lock that thing until, right? Because you don't want
Right.
somebody adding something,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
but
right,
it is what it
Oh.
is, So,
Yeah.
so you send a sample
Well-
out on a Thursday and it's, it's closed on Saturday and Tuesday and it's open the next Thursday.
Yeah, and people can store their oil for a couple of weeks. That's
A
Yeah,
week.
exactly. Well, also too, I mean, people, I've seen where people actually just leave the jugs and
Yep.
Gary's guys actually have to pour it, right?
They probably still do that.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it might just be that they store it for a week,
actually, didn't they used to make you ask somebody to unlock it before you could leave
They
it?
used to, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They should, that's another thing, because
Yeah.
then it's a little bit like the COVID, when you walk in the door, you ask the questions, where is this oil from? Are you sure it's not contaminated? This and this and this, how long have you had it? Where did you get it? Because if it's just something you found somewhere, we don't want it because it might be contaminated because you don't
Right.
know the provenance of this thing.
Right.
So, I think could just have a little more control over the
Yeah.
thing would be helpful too.
All right.
Who, seriously, to be serious for a minute, then who's going to figure out the cost of testing?
I'll find out. because I send oil in for testing anyway, for other reasons, to look at engine wear in my boat and that sort of thing. So I'll find out.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not expensive. Well, it's not really expensive. It's moderately expensive, but I have them test for a lot more things than PCBs.
Yeah, but, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I bet you it's not much more than a water test, to tell you the truth.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we should actually find out all the stuff that they test for though, right? We should do the same test that they do, you know, 'cause
Yeah.
probably not only PCBs, it's probably a variety of things.
Yep.
You know, but it's probably a common test, right? If you
Yeah.
say, oh yeah,
Yeah.
you know, ABC oil.
I'll
You know,
find
but-
out.
Which, of course, then makes me say, if that's the case, if it's not terribly expensive, why isn't Clean Harbors either requiring that we test it before they collect it, or rather than keeping reserve samples, why don't they just test those damn samples?
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because
Infuriating.
they pool 100 different ones, right?
Right.
So it's, you know, and the odds of it happening are probably fairly low. And then since they're just going to pass it on to us anyway, right? They save the upfront cost and pass it on to the.
Well, I guess we should have known beforehand.
Yeah, it would have
if
been
that's
nice.
how-
Yeah.
Because then we would know more what the risks that we're running. We're not just running the risk of our little 100-gallon tank.
Right.
Now we're paying for 2,500 gallons, which is, or more, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So currently the tank is locked?
Yes.
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, now let's go on to the good news. We did the bad news first.
Yeah.
This is the good news.
We got rid of 89,000. We're going to get how much?
Well, we're gonna get 100,000.
Yeah.
Attached to my report, you'll see an award letter from SDOT for a grant for $100,000 for design improvements to the Curve and Maple Street bridges. We had applied for this funding about 2 years ago, about the same time we had applied for Complete Streets funding. And it was intended to be both design and construction funds. You know, fast forward 2 years, the state is awarding the design portion of the grant to a number of towns, including Carlisle. And they intend to fund construction out of a forthcoming bond bill. That's what we've been told. So we do have this grant that would fund safety improvement design at both of those bridges, which when last inspected, I think rated a 2 out of on a scale of 0 to 9 as far as their safety. So, good news. Honestly, I think most of us had forgotten about this. But
All except Sylvia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she never forgets.
No, Jesus, yeah.
So we'll get a proposal from Tech Engineering and see what that looks like. Actually, I heard from them today, and they thought that design service would be about $85,000, and not the 100,000 that is eligible. But
And is this
so
a reimbursement type of grant?
Conceivably it could be. We haven't even gotten the grant paperwork from the state.
Okay.
I think interestingly, the state notified the mosquito about 2 weeks before they notified the town. We were getting this grant, and I got an email, might have been from Mary Lynn, saying, "What's this grant?" I said, "Well, I wish I could remember, but they kind of got it backwards. But it's good news, so we're not going to say no, right? We're going
Great.
Yeah.
to see where that goes. All right, and then Eversource has informed us that they're withdrawing their application for that grant location on Church Street. And then I've got some of the upcoming meetings. I'm trying to kind of, figure out what'll be on the agenda. I think we're sort of targeting mid-September to finalize a warrant for a special town meeting, if I understand correctly. That's kind of what I was supposing for a town meeting, maybe mid-October. That would make the town clerk very happy with 2 elections, one in September and one in November. She very much would like to see an October special town meeting, if at all possible, because it's going to be quite a busy fall with respect to the election schedule. But I think in the October 10th, I just kind of picked the date out of a hat on that one. I'm just kind of spitballing as to when that special town meeting. Conceivably, it could, I know the Wayne, it feels that a Saturday is probably, our best option still at this point, so.
Yeah, okay.
Outdoors, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a Saturday. That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Now,
Right.
that's the weekend of Columbus Day weekend, but I guess maybe with COVID, it won't.
Oh, might not, yeah.
The way things are
Yeah.
going, they're not going to celebrate Columbus Day anymore anyway.
That's true too.
Right.
That's true too. Okay.
All right, I think that's all I've got in my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for Tim? Hearing none. Approval, liaison reports.
I have one from the Municipal Facilities Committee. Some good news. Apparently the test samples from the around the generator oil tank that was replaced at the fire department are all testing negative. The bad news is that the guy who did the drilling put his tailings on the other side of the siltation barrier. So now we're going to have to figure out what to do with that and if that's going to be a big problem. So, but at least the good news is that we won't have a big mishigas at the fire department with water well contamination for the neighbors.
Just a quick report on the master plan. We're meeting actually tomorrow night and mapping out the sort of next 3 to 6 months. Short run, we're considering for a very small amount, hiring someone that is has actually been helping the town with the municipal vulnerability proposal and also is a planner that works for a neighboring town, just to coordinate kind of what are the different elements that we now need to, that are serious for consideration as key elements of the master plan, and what's the analysis that needs to get done, and are there needs to hire any other consultants, or is it something that we can do with the skills that we have on the committee or other people in town? And the plan is not to spend or propose any additional spending of the $90,000 that's still available in the budget that the town approved for the master plan process until well into the fall, when we can take another look at it. And that would come to the Board of Selectmen if there's anything significant there. Or I guess it would go through the planning board first. And then the other thing is that the master plan steering committee would like to be on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen meeting at the end of August, if that's possible, to provide an update. And both Madeline Blake, the chair of the planning board, who's also the co-chair of the master plan, and Jan Corneal, the other co-chair, would be available to come.
Thank you.
Great.
I've been meeting with the back to school committee. They've been very busy and they're putting together their final plans to submit to the state. Jim O'Shea didn't seem too concerned about the Friday deadline. He said, well, if we're not going to have it Friday, we'll have it next week sometime. But they're really trying to get a good handle on the various, what would trigger the various models, having some kind of benchmarks for instance, how many cases would require a full remote response if they started going back to school full time. If they do a hybrid, what would that look like? And part of that is predicated on the number of parents who have indicated they may keep their kids home anyway, And the idea being that if enough parents kept their kids home, that would then make more room in the classroom for better distancing and might free up teachers to specialize in remote teaching, because you might be able to have, for instance, if it's one less section per grade, if they were evenly distributed per grade, and of course that's the real issue, they might be able to handle that. That would also solve some of the transportation issues. So that's what they're working on now. They're meeting far more regularly and putting things together. I think they met last night. I think they're meeting, the school committee, I think is meeting both today and tomorrow.
Tomorrow at noon.
Yep. So lots of activity going on there. We did have a walkthrough of the school last week, and that was very useful, I thought, to get some idea of what kind of distancing they can do if they do a full everybody back to schools model. Kate,
Yeah,
you were
they
there
did.
too.
Yeah, I was there, and they did all of this as if, everybody went back to school, and there were some kids sitting in the corner and some kids with the wall right up to here in order to get that 6-foot distancing. So it was not ideal. So we'll see. It's like nailing Jello to the wall, because nobody knows what they're planning for at this point.
Well, but they're going to have to decide here pretty soon.
But,
so
yeah, they will. I'm
unless everything goes haywire and the state simply says everybody goes remote. Yeah.
That will come.
Which would be unfortunate for our town, because we really have the ability to open up our schools.
Yeah, that's right. I've sat in on those meetings. They met last night for quite a long time, and there's another parental survey coming out. It's been issued, and the results are expected, I believe, tomorrow. To assess this question that Alan raised, like, would you send your kids, would you come in or not? But the problem is in the Jello model, a lot of those answers depend on what model they come up with, right? So there's probably a difficult way to assess it, but the teachers, as represented by Linda Veneria, the president of the union, expressed a strong desire to go full remote, which I found disappointing, because I think, to your point, we're Carlisle, it's a different situation. And in particular, I think if we don't do it now, we're not going to do it for quite some time. It's only going to get worse in the winter for a lot of reasons, most specifically because you can't go outside as much. So to me, now is the time to make some kind of in-person happen when the kids could learn outside. And also for the younger children, I think it's a really critical time for them to forge a personal relationship with their teacher at the beginning of their school year. And then, if we have to go remote, then we can go remote, but they would have had a break essentially from the 6 months they just had of no school, or, no in-person school. And the 6 months they're likely to have, I think, in the late fall going into the spring, that again, I believe, will be remote. So I think and I've been urging them that it's incumbent to, as I say, get to yes and not try to find out reasons to say no. But there is no denying that, there's a strong public health issue there, and that has to be assessed. So.
Yeah. Well, I expressed a similar opinion to the LEPC today. So.
Very good.
I will say, I want to say one
there.
We mentioned, and Luke and I will work on a liaising with the Board of Health. What I've asked Christine Lear to consider and talk to Jim about, and Linda, is really a meeting where the selectmen, the Board of Health, the school committee, the school administration, and representatives of the union have a meeting. And in my opinion, I would just pose one question, which is, what do we have to do to have some degree of in-person school? In other words, what steps do we need to take to make sure that it's safe and the majority of the people feel safe, and especially the teachers feel safe? And why don't we work to that? And understanding, yes, of course, the framework says we'll dial it back if there's any incidents that rise above a threshold. And that's why I go back to the testing aspect, because you really need specific data to drive that decision. So she has agreed that she would take that on. So that joint meeting may be that big meeting. And my further comment, or maybe last comment on is, if at the end of that session, we cannot reach a consensus about what it would take to make it safe, let's go remote. But at least then we've, they have these endless models, but if you ask a simple question, like, is there a way to make it safe? And if the conclusion is no, there's no way to make it safe, then okay, you've answered your own question, but right now we have all these camps and people are getting parked, and I think it's sort of devolving, which I
Yeah,
find,
we don't want to see. Yeah.
No, and it's hard to know what you could do without a vaccine.
well, you take we take risks. We all take risks, right? And I guess it's a risk balancing thing. And so yes, of course that's true. But as I've told people, there are three axes that need to be considered. There's the learning aspect, there's the safety aspect, but there's also the social emotional aspect of the children. And you have to balance those three, and they're kind of orthogonal to each other in some ways. So
Yep.
It's a risk
Yeah.
it's a risk balancing thing. And again, if the answer is the risk is too great for whatever, forget all these other things, okay, then that's your answer. But if it's not too great, if there's a way we can do it, Carlisle's very unique in its, small district size and its physical space. And especially in the warm weather, we have an opportunity that almost, like, I would say no more than a dozen districts in the Commonwealth probably have to actually conduct meaningful outside teaching for a couple months.
Okay.
That's my opinion only. I'm speaking my opinion, but I believe that there's a better answer for the first couple months.
All right. Anything additional? Approval of
Al?
minutes. Go. Yep.
This is RJ.
Yes, RJ.
I thought we were going to understand something about the project. That's why I've been.
No, that's
Basically,
not going to be until next meeting.
Oh,
2
okay.
weeks from
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks from now?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we made a rule a week ago that all reports and documents had to be in at least a week before the next Board of Selectmen's meeting. So we had to put that one off because that wasn't ready.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Anyway,
And I will be, now that I'm the new liaison to the technology committee, I will be contacting Tim to get together to make sure that happens.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Sorry if I indulged your meeting, but I enjoyed it.
It's okay. Yeah, we do have fun, don't we?
You're always welcome.
David Morel, I want to say hi to you. I haven't heard of you. I've heard of you, but I haven't met you.
Hello, nice to meet you by Zoom. Hopefully we'll have an in-person meeting again sometime and we can.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Very good.
All righty. Meeting minutes. Any edits?
Yes, I had some important edits. I had some unimportant ones, which I already sent to Jen, but I have a couple of more substantial ones. So I'd like to talk about those before we have a motion to accept the minutes. On the second page, when we were talking about the Complete Streets project and for the traffic and pedestrian safety, Luke, there were 3 points listed here in the minutes, and I believe that the Board of Selectmen requested that the committee review those 3 recommendations. While they didn't reject them outright, they requested, them to be reviewed and brought back to us.
Yeah, I think the idea was that, at least my interpretation was that everybody wanted to see how the Rotary project was going to impact traffic. So
Yeah, and I just think that should be noted in the minutes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, while ideal it happens before, I completely understand it, and we haven't had another meeting, but, it makes sense, before you start making all these other changes, see
Right.
the initial change
Okay.
does.
So,
Yeah.
so the recommendations after the Rotary is completed is.
Yeah.
Rotary is completed. Okay, and then after that, the other pedestrian safety committee requested the 2 quotes for the conduits, and there was nothing in the minutes that said that. We did not approve either of those requests. I can't even read my own.
Well, we
handwriting
said
here.
on number 1, we said if he paid for it, we could go ahead and do
Right.
it.
Yeah, we said specifying, yes.
And then
And
the second
we
one, we
indicated
did
that
not
we-
approve.
Yeah, so I guess I thought we could say we indicated that we might approve any privately funded conduit, but that we did not approve either specifying financial pressures. And we could approve installation if it's privately
Right.
Funded. And the last thing, okay, well, that's not terribly important, but where we, Jen forgot to put our motion to continue the open hearing on the poll, Church Street poll, to next meeting at the same time posted for tonight's hearing. Of course, it's gotten withdrawn in the meantime, but we did have that motion, and I thought it should be included in the, sorry, minutes. So,
Oh, and I have one too.
Oh, okay.
On the last page, under the last August 4th working session, Mark Way it's W-E-Y is how you spell his name.
I didn't know that. So I move approval of the minutes of, where's my top page?
July 28th.
July 28th as amended.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Oscalillo, aye.
Lewis, I.
Odell, I.
Reed, aye.
Thank you.
And-
Unanimous.
Okay.
And
I guess I was gonna,
go ahead.
well, Jen gave us a list and all the letters that,
Yeah.
we got. And I was, normally she used to put these up. I ended up printing them out because I was stupid, but I would say that we could request that she doesn't need to send us
Correct.
all the attachments
Just
with
list
the
them.
minutes. I know she has to, yeah. So that, anyway, I'll be more careful next time and just print from page 1 to page 7 and not all 69 pages of all those letters that I'd already read.
Good.
Yeah.
And in accordance with our previous discussions, I have a series of action items to
Good.
enumerate. I will meet with the FinCom chair in the next week or so to work out schedules on when we might meet and what we might cover at those meetings. Appoint a Highland task group to look at the future of the Highland building. Update the liaison list. Luke and Kate, now that you are official liaisons to the police department, police and fire, meet with Lieutenant Crow to work on his contract. And
So wait a second.
No, it's just me.
just
Okay,
you,
good.
sorry, just you. Yeah.
I'm done with contracts. I'm done.
No, I had originally you down for police, then I realized, okay, no, it's
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, no.
That's okay. So Kate,
Well,
Kate will
technically
meet
not
with
the-
Lieutenant Crow.
Yep.
Okay.
And I will meet with the tech group to prepare the report for our meeting on the 25th or whenever it is, next one
Yeah.
this month. Any others?
Luke and I are gonna, we're gonna coordinate with Board of Health, and maybe it'll be on the 25th, or maybe it'll be this other meeting that I would like to have, which would be a separate meeting with school committee and so forth on the subject of testing.
Okay.
Kate and I are going to work on the warrant article around the
Yes.
bylaw change for personnel.
Right.
Yes.
Just writing these down. Good. Anything further? Hearing none, I would accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I just want to say, I'm loving that action item.
Yeah, me too. That's a good thing to
It's
have.
just great. Yeah. Okay.
Roll call vote.
Arnold, I.
Oscar,
Lewis, I.
With appreciation for Chairman Lewis, who once again comes in under time. Aye, Modell, aye.
Yeah, you notice he kicked a lot of the items off the agenda in order to get there, but
Yeah.
never mind.
You found there's a method to my madness, huh?
I'm appreciative.
Yeah, he
I'm
promotes the
appreciative of a
agenda.
timely meeting.
Read I.
All righty. Thank
And
you all.
to
Have a
Tim
great
as
evening.
well. Let's not
Yep.
forget Tim, because he does.
Thank
all the
you
hard
all.
work.
Who?
Thank you.
You know,
So long, Tim.
and the guy. Thanks.
Hi, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks,
Oh,
Jen.
Jen, I
Bye,
think
Jen.
Jen just got us set up. I don't think she's there.
Oh, okay.
Smart.
She was-
Yeah.
Yeah,
she was- no.
Or we put her to
She had-
sleep. Yeah.
yeah.